are these people?
He wrote a tweet he wrote an article this week about WikiLeaks. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But he published this last night. I woke up to this morning and I went, oh man. And apparently it's gone viral. So what Gordon writes is that he's got a declaration of conscience here. My name is Gordon Dimmack. I am a journalist and a citizen of the UK. On Monday morning, I will walk into a police station and peacefully hand myself in. Why? Because I support Palestine action and I have encouraged others to do the same. Under the Terrorism Act that now carries a potential 14-year prison sentence, not for harming anyone, not for inciting violence, but for supporting people who oppose genocide and encouraging others to do so. This is the state of the country in 2025. I will not plead ignorance. I know the law. I know the risk. And I am making this decision with full awareness that the state may try to make an example of me. Let them. Because if we now live in a country where saying I oppose genocide is treated as a criminal act, if peaceful solidarity with those who resist arms dealers is now considered terrorism, then the problem isn't me. The problem is the law. The problem is the state. The problem is the moral vacuum swallowing this country whole. This is not just about Palestine action. This is about freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, and the criminalization of moral clarity. If they want to arrest me for standing on the side of humanity, they're welcome to, but let the record show I will never apologize for doing the right thing. Let history remember that I stood up, and let it remember every name, every badge number, every uniform that tried to silence those who dared say not in my name. I oppose genocide. I support Palestine action. And if that makes me a criminal, then so be it. And as you can see, that's had almost 500,000 views already on Twitter and has 5,500 reposts and 15,000 likes. And then a lot of people criticizing him and a lot of people supporting him. I just told him that I'm worried for him and I support him in whatever he wants to do, because I sent him a direct message this morning and I love him. And I would not do that myself. I'll tell you right now. I appreciate it. I don't know. I mean, certainly he wants to be potentially made an example of. I mean, they may just laugh at him and tell him to go home. I wanted to get your take on that because you said you had not seen that tweet today.
Well, no, actually, I think I saw it yesterday when he was doing the same thing. But I know he's not alone. There was multiple people who actually stood out in solidarity with civil disobedience. Like, that is the thing I feel like people should be doing in the UK, especially. You know, like, now is the time to risk it for the biscuit. So, the more of you that do that, the harder it is for them to, like, actually prosecute all of you, So,
yep. But they'll figure out a way to manage is what I'm worried about. And the AI may help.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Steve Gill, very interesting. You say
people that like. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, very interesting that he mentions Gordon was fighting for Assange from the jump. Fuck the UK. Because of the next article that I'm about to bring. And that may make you scratch your head a little bit. Not scratch your head, but think a little bit twice. And it made me think twice. And like I said, I've been waiting for somebody to write this article and to talk about this. Because I didn't want to be the first one. I didn't want to be the only one. And I certainly don't want to be the subject of massive attacks from a community that I really enjoyed being a part of and believe in. And I'm worried that we've been sold a bill of goods and nobody's asking the hard questions that 2 years ago we would have asked. I feel like we kind of got soft because they let Julian out and we kind of took our feet off the gas because, well, let everybody go home. We did it. But we didn't. And Gordon points out here in his latest article at gordondimmack.com, his new WordPress website. I encourage everyone to subscribe to that. Again, support independent media. Gordon's independent. He wrote an article this week that says, WikiLeaks is dead. This is its ghost. It's not WikiLeaks anymore. It's Wiki Tweets, trademark. Which I totally agree with. He says, far be it from me to defend Tony Blair. But when WikiLeaks, yes, WikiLeaks, starts throwing around claims about Blair's Institute being involved in a so-called Trump Riviera plan for Gaza without publishing a single document, something's seriously wrong. Earlier this week, the official WikiLeaks account posted a tweet claiming that leaked documents showed the Tony Blair Institute was involved in post-war Gaza reconstruction fantasies, complete with artificial islands, tax-free blockchain zones, an Elon Musk manufacturing hub, and the Piste de Resistance, a Trump-branded coastal resort. Because, of course. But it turns out, A, that's not the case at all. So this is the tweet from WikiLeaks. All right, this was on July 9th. He says it sounds like a dystopian parody, but there was no document, no source, just an image of a glossy investor pitch and a wall of buzzwords. And then, in a follow-up, they linked not to a leak, not to a raw cable, but to a paywalled Financial Times article. Let that sink in. This isn't journalism. It's branding. This isn't the WikiLeaks that published Collateral Murder. It's not the WikiLeaks that exposed the inner workings of empire through primary documents. This is something else entirely. This is what happens when a once radical organization gets gutted, co-opted, and turned into a ghost of itself. No documents, no verification, no transparency. Just innuendo, headlines, and hype, baby. The exact tactics that WikiLeaks used to expose in others. It's heartbreaking because it's not just WikiLeaks. This is the pattern. TYT in the United States was taken over and neutered by a DNC kingmaker, Jeffrey Katzenberg. The Labor Party was gutted, repainted, and relaunched as a PR consultancy. Even Assange's own defenders bent the knee to politicians who stood shoulder to shoulder with Israel while it starved Palestinians in Gaza and jailed David McBride for telling the truth about their crimes. Every force that was once anti-establishment eventually gets colonized by the establishment. And now it's happened to WikiLeaks too. Sorry, coughing.
Coffee?
Coughing.
You go down the wrong hole?
No.
No choking. Not allowed.
Whoa, I just lost my breath there for a second. It wasn't coffee going down the wrong hole, though.
You right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Gordon continues about when clarity gets you misread. What's worse, I pointed this out publicly, that the Tony Blair Institute was only shown promoting a two-state solution at a conference, not involved in designing mega projects or pushing Trump-branded hotels. And now people are mentioned saying, I support a two-state solution and that I'm defending Blair. No, I'm defending the truth. I'm defending the idea that if you're going to accuse someone of something, even someone like Blair, you better bring receipts, especially with someone like him. I mean, for Christ's sake, this is the Tony Blair this is Tony Blair we're talking about. It shouldn't be that hard. And it wasn't. The fact that saying this out loud makes people suspicious.
It's a Tony Blair with a two-state solution. Still fucking stupid.
Yeah, but the thing is that it actually came from Boston Consulting Group. Right, yeah, BCG. Right. The fact that saying this out loud now makes people suspicious of you tells you everything you need to know about the state of journalism, activism, and public discourse in 2025. We've traded transparency for tribalism, receipts for retweets. Dude, that is epic right there. Receipts for retweets. We've exchanged receipts for retweets. I fucking love that. And just to make things crystal clear, Gordon or I do not support a two-state solution. I'm also not categorically ruling out the TBI having Orwellian plans for Gaza or any plans being drawn up by the Boston Consulting Group aren't evil. They may well have and may well be. It's just that the evidence presented so far is not even worthy of mention. At least not with the framing of that Tony Blair or his institute was behind these plans. That's sensationalism, something WikiLeaks used to oppose. That also is, we covered this plan 14 months ago. All right, Ynet reported on this Gaza 2035 plan with those exact same AI drawings. Now, the only thing that I saw added were those little points on a map, but who knows where the hell that actually came from. Certainly not in the source documents. Where's the link to the original? So he continues about WikiLeaks calling it the ghost of what once was. There was a time when WikiLeaks was feared because it let the public think for itself. It didn't tell you what to believe. It showed you the documents and let the truth speak. That's why governments wanted Assange dead or buried. That's why it mattered. Take the OPCW leaks, for example. In 2019, WikiLeaks published internal documents from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. A lot of people don't know what the OPCW stands for. They just hear that terminology a lot. It's literally the Organization to Prohibit Chemical Weapons. That's all they do, is study what are chemical weapons. Now, it showed that investigators raised serious doubts about the alleged chemical weapons attack in Douma, Syria. This is 2019. One leaked engineering report even suggested that the gas cylinders had likely been manually placed and not dropped from the air, which would directly contradict the official Western narrative. And when did all this happen? Conveniently, just days before Julian Assange was dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy by British police. First, the truth comes out. The man behind the truth gets locked away. Within months, the leaks stop. The document drops dry up. WikiLeaks, the publisher, goes silent. That was the last time they acted like the organization they once were. Everything since has been surface level, noise, vibes, and branding, a ghost of its former self. This Twitter-era WikiLeaks isn't feared by anyone.
And who's running that again?
Kirsten Hernofson, or maybe CIA, or MI6 or some kind of combination of that all. Who's running the anonymous account right now? All right. This Twitter WikiLeaks, again, isn't feared by anyone. It's not dangerous. It's not disruptive. It's just nostalgia merch. A blue check account coasting on the credibility built by a man who spent 14 years rotting in detention of one kind or another. And now they're citing the Financial Times, a legacy media outlet, behind a paywall. No upload, no link to a leak, just gated journalism filtered through corporate media. If Julian Assange were still in control of WikiLeaks, there is absolutely no way in hell he'd ever endorse linking to a Financial Times article hidden behind a paywall and calling it a leak. Let's not forget that WikiLeaks called that a leak. It's a betrayal of everything WikiLeaks once stood for: transparency, source material, radical truth-telling. Take the most recent report that Gordon made on the IAEA leak that proved that Israel were in cahoots with the IAEA in directing Iran's nuclear program, despite the fact that Israel isn't even a party to the IAEA. The leaked documents showed Israel feeding surveillance and strategic intelligence directly into the IAEA decision-making processes about Iran. They were credible, time-stamped, and clearly authentic, and yet WikiLeaks didn't touch them? Al Jazeera published this.
Why?
Instead, they linked to a TASS article, that's Russian state media, quoting an anonymous intelligence source. No documents, no archive, just hearsay. Meanwhile, they had no issue amplifying a Financial Times paywalled piece about the Tony Blair Institute. Again, without a single source document. That's not just behind the curve. That's a complete reversal of what WikiLeaks used to be. The place you went to see the evidence for yourself. If you're uncomfortable reading this, ask yourself the question, why are WikiLeaks ignoring leaks of nuclear importance while tweeting out tenuous leaks Tony Blair has the plans for Gaza? So he says, here's what the FT leak evidence actually shows. And let's be clear about what's real and what isn't. Yes, staff from the Tony Blair Institute attended meetings discussing post-war Gaza reconstruction. Yes, they submitted a paper focused on a two-state solution as part of those talks. No, they did not write or endorse the infamous investor slide deck that included references to a Trump Riviera or an Elon Musk smart manufacturing zone. And no, they did not promote resettlement plans or branding schemes for Gaza. That deck came from Israeli entrepreneurs and Boston Consulting Group, not the Tony Blair Institute. In fact, the TBI explicitly stated that they had no role in producing the slides and did not support their content. This was all covered in detail by the Financial Times, The Guardian, and even Middle East Eye. The Blair Institute's only link was their presence at the conference and the contribution of a policy paper about governance, not glitzy tourism zones or blockchain trade. This isn't defending Tony Blair. This is defending factual accuracy. If we want to hold power to account, we have to do it properly with receipts, not vibes. All right? So, WikiLeaks is dead. It was replaced. Proceed with caution. Now, again, Steve Gill said in chat that Gordon is one of the most stringent, longest time fighters on behalf of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Well, at least on behalf of getting Julian Assange free, which was accomplished. But that was in the hopes that WikiLeaks would actually end up being restored as an organization in some way, shape, or form. And now he's seeing the exact opposite is happening, that it's effectively being utilized as a tool for imperialism in corporate media while ignoring actual leaks of substance.
Well, didn't we hear?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, didn't we hear that, like, the last time we heard Assange talk himself, that he might get back to work? I think that was the last message, right? When was that?
That was at that conference in the fall that we covered the live stream. That was like not an AMA, but an Ask Me a Specific set of vetted questions with my wife and WikiLeaks founder, WikiLeaks CEO sitting next to me, where I could answer something. All right. Yeah. Birdhouse Blue is very funny. Yes, it's kind of hard to find a reliable breaking news account on X. I'll tell you what it isn't, and we covered that. Dominic Michael Trippi. I would not trust anything that guy said either. He's a propaganda factory. We all know that.
You almost want to just mute the phrase breaking news on Twitter. You'd probably do pretty well.
Breaking or alert. Yep. All that stuff is just hype machine stuff. All right. So, Gordon, I love Gordon. I want Gordon to continue publishing. I really hope Gordon doesn't get locked up tomorrow when he turns himself in. And he's 6 hours ahead, so I don't know exactly what time he gets out of bed. But I'm guessing that's probably going to happen in the next couple of hours. And I will be very curious to see what happens once we get off of here. So good luck. I love you, Gordon. Really, seriously. Be safe. So the other thing about WikiLeaks was, I believe that our brother Golden Monarch is in the chat already. If not, he will be soon, I'm sure. Check out Golden Monarch Domain.substack.com. He also decided to write an article this week. Now, this is really long. I can't go through all of this, but I did want to scroll through it really quickly because there are a lot of important points in this article that I want people to pay attention to. And then I want them to go to this article and go through the whole thing and be like, holy shit, look at all these receipts that are here. And this is crazy. But he's suggesting that Gabriel Shipton and WikiLeaks are also co-opted by Bitcoin evangelist scammers, which would kind of fit with the Tony Blair Institute that's also in bed with BlackRock and all these banks. That's Gabriel Shipton. That's Julian's half-brother. Golden Monarch writes, through the combined efforts of people all around the world who advocated and chanted for free Julian Assange, to Vivienne Westwood, Jennifer Robinson, all right, who ironically represented a certain Amber Heard in 2020. The journalists such as Richard Medhurst and Kevin Gostola and Matt Kennard, Joe Loria, Chris Hedges, Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks, a cypherpunk and a journalist in his own right, is free. Hooray! And now 1 year has passed since Julian has been reunited with his wife, Stella Assange, previously known as Sarah Gonzalez Davant Morris, and their two children. These days, Julian has been laying relatively low, with Stella and WikiLeaks updating directly to viewers about Julian and any goals going forward when involving Julian, most notably the urging request for the U.S. for the Trump administration to, quote, pardon Julian Assange, unquote. Effectively, both Stella and WikiLeaks are speaking on behalf of Julian, not so much Julian himself. There's another individual, Gabriel Shipton, or more accurately, Gabriel Barber Shipton, Julian's half-brother, whom we need to talk about as well. There are a few glaring observations of both WikiLeaks and Gabriel as of late that I don't want to write about, but it's painfully clear to me that these two, like Stella, have developed or gained a disturbing trust with pro-establishment Bitcoin figures who have used the Assange family and Julian's name to promote Bitcoin into something far, far worse. So he gets into a Stella recap. All right, and here are some other links and articles and things that you can read about some of the things that she's been up to, about Jack Dorsey or Andrew Tate, who funded Julian's $500,000 flight to Australia out of prison. I don't know. Was it even Michael Saylor? It might have been. Right? And then he's got a couple articles that he's written about this, about Festival de Cannes, and that was where Julian had all the names of the murdered Palestinian children on his T-shirt, but didn't really say a word the whole time. And took smiling photo shots. He did talk to Stefania Marizzi. We read that article last week, but it was all very like positive vibes and feels and not talking about any real issues. He says, last year I wrote what might be considered controversial, but it was a much needed discussion concerning Stella and her continuous support of Bitcoin per Julian alongside Bitcoin establishment figures. Stella knows what the crypto industry and its influencers like Michael Saylor of Strategy and Natalie Brunell of the Coin Stories podcast and Ludmila Kozlovska of the Open Dialogue Foundation and Jack Dorsey, the former founder of Twitter, represent. They represent dystopian freedom using half-baked, half-proven, decentralized, quote-unquote, blockchain technology for means of privacy and to be independent of government or banks, which, of course, they're not.
Which, speaking of banks, right, if you remember correctly, there was some, what was it, Sweden? There's a particular bank there, right? Happened to try to take a bunch of their money. I think there was some lawyers that worked on that. I wonder what they're doing now. Probably some not great things.
I wonder.
But
so since Julian has been freed,
follow the money around
as always. Stella has effectively narrated on what and where Julian will be present at. For example, back on April 26th, she stated that now that he's free, we've all come to Rome to express our family's gratitude for the Pope's support during Julian's persecution. Our children and I had the honor of meeting Pope Francis in June of 2023 to discuss how to free Julian from Belmarsh. Francis wrote to Julian in prison and even proposed to grant him asylum at the Vatican. At first, a new pope. I love that. Eurotrip. Shout out to Eurotrip. At first glance, what's wrong with the statement? Well, nothing other than its timing. While much of establishment media, as always, was overly reporting on the next pope to succeed Francis, which became Pope Leo, a.k.a. Robert Francis Prevost, the Chicago guy. So not really, he's the White Sox fan. Stella had only made commentary about the Pope as well as referencing Easter. You mean to tell me Stella or WikiLeaks had nothing to say about Gaza, ICE, that's immigration and customs, CCOT, or even growing crypto scams and corruption coming from both the crypto industry and the Trump administration?
Or
then
any of the wars that have been happening in the Middle East, any of those that he used to talk about frequently.
We know how she feels about Navalny in Russia. I mean, we know that they've been effectively, kind of turned against whatever happened with that, and they seem to support Ukraine in some weird, because either they haven't figured out that was a NATO op the whole time. I don't know. On May 21st of this year,
or they're kept from actually knowing.
Well, both Stella and Julian were seen at the Cannes Film Festival, the international festival hosted in France. The screening of the film, The $6 Billion Man, is a documentary showcasing Julian's battle
to rebuild him.
Well, maybe, but it's a battle showcasing
his battle better than ever before.
His battle to not face extradition to the U.S. Just for publishing classified documents like the Afghan war logs, the Iraq war logs, Democratic private emails, the Sony Pictures hack. A lot of people forget that one. The question at hand is not the documentary itself, rather the presence of a growing, gatekeeping Hollywood-esque surrounding Julian, particularly because of Stella, who, by the way, highly praised its director, Eugene Jarecki. Of course she's going to. The Festival de Cannes may seem independent, but once you take a close look at its partners and sponsors, JP Morgan, Nespresso, MasterCard, Dolby, etc., one has to wonder whether Stella knew everything as described here, including the mysterious donor who paid in Bitcoin for nearly all of Julian's flight, who made it financially possible for Julian to return to Australia. Right? Then we have Julian himself, and there's links to a timeline of his Assange's legal journey. I think he has a graphic of that. All right. It caused us to invest in Bitcoin, talking about how he was an early investor in Bitcoin. I thought this was really interesting. Monarch actually sent me this before he published it and asked me to proofread it. And I really, this part hit me. But speaking of Stella, I certainly wonder how Julian is personally doing. Not counting what Stella or WikiLeaks say about Julian. Now, remember once, a long time ago, that man said that you never let anybody else speak for him and don't take what anybody says he said on face value. You only take it from him himself. We have not really heard very much from him himself. So he'd like to know any personal developments related to independent journalism, Bitcoin, the crypto industry, the U.S. following the previous Biden admin, and once again, the Trump admin. Down below are a list of significant events, including that of the U.S. invasion of Iraq, to WikiLeaks being founded, to Chelsea Manning pleading guilty on espionage charges, to ultimately Julian being released. But there's a few things that are missing here, which is really interesting. All right, there are other major events coinciding with this, right? The 2008 financial crisis. And then what about the cryptic Bitcoin white paper, which was mysteriously released out to the public in 2008? This is where it gets interesting. In 2011, WikiLeaks had no choice but to start accepting Bitcoin donations due to the banks and financial institutions restricting them from using their platforms for donations. it's quite ironic that the once mysterious blockchain that financially funded WikiLeaks and Julian with well over a whopping 50,000% return has been completely now taken over and co-opted by technocratic oligarchs. These oligarchs have been actively present since the 2008 financial crisis. Yep, as well as arguably the creation of the NSA, featuring an early business relation between Boris Hagelin, an early investor of AB Crypto Enic.
Good luck.
Okay. And William Friedman, who was the chief cryptologist. Cryptotehidnik. Yes. So, again, he references Stefania's article that we talked about last week about how Julian can't file a FOIA on his behalf.
FOIA.
All right, to find out what they knew and when. But as Monarch writes this, other journalists, writers, and independent leading advocates are still waiting for a public Ask Me Anything Julian Assange, or even an in-depth one-on-one interview with a trusted journalist to answer some of the lingering questions about his imprisonment and about his mindset. It is painfully obvious that there has been, or continues to be, a blanket of censorship cloaked around Julian. Either Julian is a willing participant, or technically, he's still then in some form of prison. People want Julian.
We don't know what.
Go ahead.
I mean, he's going to get to it. I mean, about the forced choice to either plead guilty or risk spinning the test of right. Like, he had to plead guilty to this. That may have included some deal to keep him from saying anything on top of that, so I mean, we know they've kept plenty of journalists from saying stuff recently through legal action, so it doesn't surprise me if that's part of this as well. That deal essentially had fine print,
Well, here's a few things that Monarch listed out that he'd like to hear Julian's perspective on, and everything he's had to endure, including neglected deaths of fellow prisoners, the forced two choices of either plead guilty or risk spending the rest of your days in a maximum security U.S. prison. How do you weigh that decision? Julian simply wanting to just get updates to different matters. How did you manage to get updated on things while you were in Belmarsh for 62 months? Or did you care? I mean, I know people came to visit. What Julian's perspective is on crypto, including Bitcoin, what he understands about its evolution, the 180-degree flip on the acceptance and embrace by the banking and financial community since he went to Belmarsh. Do you think he would still be supportive of Bitcoin now that he knows that all these major hedge funds and banks and everybody are behind it when they demonetized him for investing in just that to begin with? I don't know.
Yeah.
Does he still hold any? That's also a good question. Does he still think that it's a future currency?
Also, I have still yet to believe that him pleading guilty does nothing. They all said that that's would be the case, but for some reason I don't believe that. That I think him pleading guilty will absolutely have ramifications still. We haven't seen it quite yet, but it's the reason why they're not going to pardon him as well, because it at least puts precedent.
Well, publishing classified material is now considered illegal and will be prosecutable because of this as a precedent.
Yeah.
Even if it's been sourced, even if it's in the public interest, even if it's XYZ, now they can say, hey, publisher. So
I definitely remember WikiLeaks trying to downplay that, so
yeah, this is all at Golden Monarch Domain .substack.com. All right, he gets into WikiLeaks and he even posts about Michael Saylor. What's interesting is that in 2013, Michael Saylor thought that Bitcoin was a scam. And there was that thing about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin over 14 years from a $7,800 cost basis. It was actually, I think, 8 billion from 78,000. But what is still up with WikiLeaks still accepting cryptocurrency? And it isn't just Bitcoin. You can donate to WikiLeaks using Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin and Zcash and Monero and Azov fucking Nazi Ethereum. Additional cryptocurrency options to be announced. They're not done yet. And let's pretend that WikiLeaks didn't deliberately state on its website that you can read up on each crypto either on their official website of said crypto or Wikipedia? Oh, come on. WikiLeaks is now linking to Wikipedia? Sure. And let's most certainly pretend that among WikiLeaks partners, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Intercept, the Wall Street Journal, etc., are not among the list of said co-publishers, research partners, and funders. WikiLeaks, or better yet, the Sunshine Press, posted an interesting update per Gabriel Shipton's new project, the Information Rights Project, and we're going to talk about that soon enough, right? And then we talked about that wallet that went, that lit up with 80,000 Bitcoin in it, that sold out for 109,000 a coin, all right, where they only paid 78 cents per coin, right? The other 6 wallets contain 60,000. This gets into the details of exactly how much was sold and when and what. It was a total of at least 80,000. Whose wallets are these? Well, technically, 2011 was the earliest for select few users to be extremely aware and knowledgeable of Bitcoin, how Bitcoin transactions and trading works. Based on the cryptic behavior of the OG constantly buying Bitcoin at 78 cents, he had initially thought of Sailor, who was anonymously buying Bitcoin at 78 cents. But no, it's not them. When he first mentioned Bitcoin in 2013, he initially thought it was a scam and that their days were numbered. He didn't have an epiphany until 2020 when he completely flip-flopped and dedicated his commitment that his company would buy Bitcoin regardless if it pumped or dumped. All right. Another OG consideration is the infamous Silk Road guy, Ross Ulbricht. So he speculates on who might have cashed out this wallet. All right. These numbers associated with Ulbricht do pale in comparison. See, that's the thing. Ulbricht once had a wallet of 430 Bitcoin, not 10,000, not 80,000.
Yeah.
All right. So these numbers pale in comparison. Nonetheless, this was worth comparing because wallets that have been dormant for over a decade have become active again in tandem with the U.S.'s hard push by billionaires, politicians, and financial institutions to adopt crypto. There is no doubt in Monarch's mind that these resurgences of old wallets are contributing to hyper volatility of the price of Bitcoin. For sure. So again, he pushes my note there about that we covered from last week on the show about the post and the transaction, which again descended all out with a single click and no test transaction, also is a tell to me. It tells me that they didn't really know what they were doing. Because they could have been sniped. Anything could have happened. They could have lost all that 80,000 Bitcoin. Holy shit, no test transaction? No, to make sure that it was going to go through and be clean? No, you could have lost the whole thing and been fucked? So, this is where he gets into how Gabriel Shipton is still promoting Bitcoin, right? But it's really weird. You've got the Assange DAO that they raised a ton of money for, that all of a sudden that money was gone, right? There was already an NFT project. I didn't even know there was an NFT project that helped free him also. That's not even the DAO. Gabriel, much like Stella, as well as his father, John Shipton, has spent years advocating for Julian's freedom from Belmarsh prison. Shipton, an award-winning Australian film producer, got involved in the Assange case starting in 2019. His brother had already been persecuted in an embassy for 7 years. In 2019, he was actually locked up in Belmarsh. Gabriel is previously known for his contribution to films such as Mad Max Fury Road, Emu Runner, and Ithaca, A Fight to Free Julian Assange, which was premiered around this country, by the way. Starting in 21 or 22, Gabriel got involved in crypto alongside Stella, specifically to raise awareness of Julian's condition in Belmarsh. Beginning with the NFT project known as Censored, in partnership with the mysterious digital artist Pack, the project raised $77 million, which went towards the legal campaign to free Assange. Wow, his lawyers got $77 million. Somebody got it. Gabriel says that he had never even met the artist. I don't even know if it's a him. I assumed it was a him, but I never met him or them. Crazy, right? But then there was this Assange DAO token. It originally launched in late December 2021 under a Telegram group, which Gabriel later joined. A few years later, in June of 2024, around the time that Julian announced that he was going to be released, the DAO token climbed in value over 80%, only to drop in value soon after. A short time period for insiders to get in and get out. So like anyone that knew that he was going to be getting out of Belmarsh could feasibly have dumped the token the moment they announced it when it spiked. As of right now, Assange DAO is currently undergoing revitalization, with its community determining what its new mission will be. And who gets to determine that? Well, conveniently, it's Stella, Gabriel Shipton, and Jennifer Robinson.
Yeah.
They can veto proposals harmful to Assange, ensuring the DAO's actions support his case. But now his case is just to be pardoned. So now he gets into this Project Spartacus. Earlier in April, Charlie Spears, who's the co-founder of Block Space Media and a board member of the Oklahoma Bitcoin Association. Oh my God. Invited on both Gabriel and Bruffstar, co-founder of Ordinals Bot, to discuss Project Spartacus. That would enable WikiLeaks to log 76,000 plus Afghan war logs on Bitcoin and on the blockchain. The effort, however, will not be done.
NFTs.
Right. But no, it will not be done to directly raise funds for Julian, but to commemorate Julian's story as a part of Bitcoin history. What the fuck is that nonsense? What? I am eerie about Bruffstar, who describes himself as both an AI and ChatGPT maxi. More like a maxi pad. Respectfully, what the hell is Gabriel thinking? Partnering with someone like Bruffstar and Spears to put archived Afghan war logs into a not so decentralized blockchain. How would that even be done? Why would Gabriel put a level of trust or confidence toward blockchain-based projects where not all of its participants may be openly honest, who may be using the legacy of Assange for self-promotion, and who may have their own conflicts of interest involving other industries, such as big tech and the military-industrial complex? Bitcoin, especially in the centralized hands of billionaires and financial institutions, who've now hoarded most of it and financially fund big tech and the military-industrial complex, is worrisome. So he has some huge doubts about Project Spartacus, and he lays that out here. All right. Then he did a one-on-one with Everett Fenigson from the podcast You're the Voice. I don't even know who that guy is. Two previously met in El Salvador. No shocker, given that El Salvador is a recurring place for Bitcoiners to meet, all while Bitcoiners stay completely silent and ignorant of President Bukele's corruption per Bitcoin CCOT, pro-Israel stances on business and technology, right? This guy's literally a former IDF soldier. And he's meeting with Gabriel, described as a freedom and Bitcoin maximalist and a chief marketing officer of global companies with a tech background of 20 years. I'll bet he was in Unit 8200. Fenigson was featured by the Wall Street Journal.
Definitely.
He was featured in by the Wall Street Journal as one of Israel's top 2022 tech leaders. He's no independent journalist.
Oh, for sure then.
Oh, it's a she. Even better. She's part of the crypto industry grift, interviewing and promoting toxic individuals from the likes of Michael Saylor to Caitlin Long of Custodia Bank. All right, and he's got a whole list of people there.
Max Kaiser.
Right.
Crypto and everything else that you're playing with.
Well, that's Joseph Kelly of Unchained, right, who has ties to those people. But this is all in promotion of Bitcoin. This is the thing I wanted to bring up, was the latest project that Gabriel was involved in. Now, again, I think that the idea to put the Afghan warlocks... Now, first of all, Gabriel isn't WikiLeaks. Why the fuck is he negotiating anything having to do with WikiLeaks? To put the Afghan warlogs onto the Bitcoin blockchain?
Family business, I guess.
Except that he has no specific title, as far as I knew, at WikiLeaks. All right. On June 26th, WikiLeaks announced Gabriel's recent launch of the Information Rights Project, an Australian charity fighting for the right to information. The people of this charity consist of Gabriel, who's the director and chair, Greg Barnes, SC, who is the director and deputy chair, Harry Bunton, and Navina Spirskova. And the best or worst part? Anyone can donate to this charity using either Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Why? What are Gabriel and WikiLeaks still doing by co-opting crypto projects as well as accepting crypto donations? Don't they know that by promoting crypto, they're giving crypto a soft approval, given that its latest scandals involving the Trump family, its obvious linkage to gambling, and its abhorrent red flags of being a Ponzi scheme with the elites? Then there was the whole thing about the Plan B forum. They are all attending this thing in Lugano, Italy. That's where they'll all get together next. They did that last year as well. And that's a whole other big Bitcoin evangelist jerk-off session, effectively. All right. As if that's not sad enough, the Plan B forum is a joint effort driven by the city of Lugano and Tether. Tether, which of course is run and controlled by our Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, and Cantor Fitzgerald. All right. Now, I don't know if Stella's going to attend. I know that Gabriel, and I think Stella's supposed to attend.
Plans on.
You've got the CEO of Tether, Paolo Ardolino, who just also invested a ton of money into Rumble. Look at that. Bitfinex! Come on, I need it. I need to hear the Bitfinex. I need the sound bit. Okay, you've got...
What? Do you?
Bitfinex. Chris from Rumble, Dominic Bay. That's what I meant. Dominic Bay, we've talked about Dominic Bay before. That's the firefighter dude out of the Santa Monica Bitcoin office nonsense bullshit. Proof of workforce. It's proof of scamming.
Cryptocurrency, dude.
Right? It doesn't matter whether Julian attends, because Stella and Gabriel will be going in lieu of Julian, which will be interpreted as Julian giving approval. What was that now? Never meet your heroes in real life. They almost always disappoint you. It was the rest of that sentence. So again, that was Golden Monarch. I'm sorry to be Buzzkill Bill on this one, but it's starting to now, the questions are starting to be asked. What the hell happened with WikiLeaks? What the hell happened with Julian Assange? What do we make of the entity now and what they are trying to accomplish? Are they really about press freedom? Have we heard about them speaking out on the Terrorism Act in the UK? No. Have we heard them speaking really about much of anything other than retweeting? Like Gordon called it, wiki tweets. Crazy. Well,
WikiLeaks.
We do not want Bitcoin and we don't want your cryptocurrency, but what we do want is for you to fund the media that you want to see like this, because I don't know too many outlets that are going to bring Gordon Dimmack and Golden Monarch talking shit about WikiLeaks from a perspective of the people that admired the shit out of WikiLeaks and loved them. But we can certainly use your help. Cash App, $ Indie News Network. ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. We've got paypal.me/Indie News Network. We've got the website, indienewsnow.com, where you can keep the media free there. And then we've got the INN newsletter and indiemediatoday.com. Both of those, INNnewsletter.com. Actually, we got a new monthly subscriber on the board. Thank you to P. Ryan this week, who picked up a new monthly subscription over at INNnewsletter.com, $8 a month. Thank you so much, really. It means the world to us, because I put a ton of time and effort into getting that stuff out there, every day for everyone. Some kind of an update. Support independent media, because we need it more than ever. I love you, and see you soon, everyone.
See you in a bit, fam.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard